AI has to become part of your workflow, and you have to own the fact that you're using it, but you also have to own the output.
Instead of just dropping in a prompt into the AI and hoping it gives us the right answer straight away, we iterate on it and we have conversations about it, human conversations, right? And then the AI listens in because we give it the transcript. And that just makes it such a better process, I would say.
We have spent weeks, to be honest,
Right.
not nonstop in iterations, to create these two essential documents, right? So that's also fair to say. So people maybe think, oh, you do it in 1 minute. Well, you do it in 1 minute if you prepare it correctly.
Okay, so you're a CEO, and I know you're building your own tools with AI. You're like that, right? You know how to code, you know how to do it. They gave you power tools, Claude Code. You're building all of your stuff yourself. But today, we're not going to talk about that. We wanted to talk about something a little bit simpler. And here's the question. Why do people still apologize for using AI? Is that still something you see happening? And why are they doing it?
Totally, I see that all the time. I think it's really about being able to show that you're not lazy, being able to show that you do the work yourself, you know? So I think that's a really important aspect of it. A lot of the times the stuff that comes out of AI is maybe not what you expected or you hope for. So you sort of already start defending yourself like, hey, you know what, I'm sorry I made it with AI, so I expect to be silly things in there, right? I think that's really why people do that still.
It's also so visible, right? We were at this event last night, and there were people presenting. And I remember one slide you pulled on my jacket. You said, "Look, that's the default Claude layout for slides, right?" So it's very visible. But you know what I'm noticing, and I'm wondering if you have the same thing, is I actually stopped removing my M dashes. Do you do that as well?
I've noticed that shift with myself as well, to be honest. I even see it if you look at our website, the Aimable website, you'll see M dashes. And in the beginning, I was frantically looking for these things and trying to remove them. And for the people that don't know them, sort of the double dash, so it's a little bit longer dash.
Right.
And that's in all the training data of all the big models. But I'm not taking them away anymore because I'm not ashamed of using AI, you know? So.
Yeah. And actually, I guess it's the other way around, right? What you expect from the team is wildly different. You know, I think as founders, we're building a company and we want everyone in the company to use AI for everything, right? How do we set that expectation?
Yeah, no, I think the best example is, of course, we were a team, all technical people, and then of course Tim joined in a sort of more like a commercial role, the client partner, and he was less sort of coding everything in Claude Code, etc. And probably in his previous role, he was more expected to build PowerPoints from scratch. And we were really sort of from day one trying to convince him, you know, let Claude do that for you. And he was in the beginning a little bit like, hey, you automate everything. Yes, the minute you notice you're doing 2 or 3 times the same thing, I'm sure we can do it quicker with AI. So that's really like from day one, that was the expectation for him as well. So now he like now maybe almost 2 months later, I think he's fully on board of that train. But it's fun to see.
I remember having that conversation. We were getting ready for Pim to be onboarded as our new sales manager. And we were having this conversation like, which slide decks do we have to prepare? Which white papers does he need? How do we make sure that he can be successful? And then we came to the conclusion that we just shouldn't do it at all, but instead give him a really strong set of documents and an AI that was capable enough to then use those documents to create a wide variety of assets for him that he could use as part of his sales engagements, right? So, and he's doing it, which is amazing to see and to see that happen. So, yeah, I think that's pretty cool. But the argument that you often hear from people is, well, you know, I tried AI, opened up ChatGPT, but it gave me garbage, so I stopped.
I
What
hear
do you
that all
say
the
to that?
time, both in my personal life and also in sort of my work life when I speak to other companies. If you don't give it any context of what your business is, what you're doing, any context about the question you're actually trying to solve today, and you just ask something, you'll get a vanilla answer. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's completely dead wrong for your specific circumstance. So you have to be aware that this AI is not a magic thing. It's just basically using knowledge, but you have to augment the knowledge with your circumstances. And then, of course, also knowing how to prompt, how to ask what you're asking is a skill of its own. So I think if people would do that better, I think they would be much more excited about what AI can do for them.
Yeah, but I think there's a very simple first step to take on all of this? Because I recognize what you're saying, and prompting is hugely important. It's also a little daunting, maybe, and a little scary because, how do you direct the AI into the right direction? So let's talk a little bit about like the advice that we wanted to share today with people. Something that worked really well for us, which is to give it very solid documents, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so, what is then a solid document? For instance, if you, in our case, sort of we're trying to build this business from scratch. So, figuring out what our value proposition is sort of at the core of what we do. It's something we need to be aligned on internally, but also if we go outside of our circle, be it for the public website or maybe for a LinkedIn post, whatever we do, it could be a proposal for a client. What the essence is of our value prop has to be aligned. You want to be sure that you're not saying something different in all these different channels. So I think you and I spend a lot of time, including, of course, Bart, the other co-founder, really trying to get this value prop document correct. And if
Yeah.
that's but then becomes sort of a base of everything else that we do. Sort of it's where it starts, right?
Yeah, and the way we did it is not by getting some consultancy in, right? We don't need that anymore because we live in the age of AI and we're building an AI first company. So I thought that whole process was, well, first of all, it went very, very quick, but it was also um, fun to see. And I think it really captured all of our thoughts in a very, very nuanced way, but also very concrete. So let's talk a little bit about how we did that. How did we pull it together without a bunch of consultants? And there's one particular meeting I remember, which we called a Roundtable meeting, and I'm sure you
Mm-hmm.
know which one I refer to, right? So we had a very first draft of the value proposition document and also the brand voice document, and it was okay. So we went downstairs and sat down at the round table, and all three of us took the document and we just started reading out loud, and we were recording our conversation about what was in the document. And then and we were just chatting, right? I don't like this. We should reword this. What about this? Well, it reminds me of this and that. And a whole bunch of thoughts went into it. And then we transcribed that recording and gave it back to the AI together with the original document and said, okay, here are our thoughts. Improve the document. And it worked so well, right?
Works unbelievably well, and especially because you know that something is recording. So I catch myself, but also you do it a lot, and Bart does it. That we'll actually be more even careful to make sure that we have set everything because we know it's being recorded
Yeah.
and it will be used to make it better. So sometimes we'll
Yeah.
say like, okay, let's emphasize this or even come back to this or
Yeah.
so also the way we talk has become almost a skill of its own. So in a way we could say like, yeah, we're just three people talking about a document, but we're also very aware to emphasize certain things, to maybe repeat them. And you'll actually see that back in the output that sort of comes out of it, because you will actually see that you've been able to emphasize what's really important about the recording. One thing I wanted to stress, people a lot of
Hmm.
times I get the question like, which tools do you use, how should I do it? But actually, you know what works great, you know it, RJ, but
Yeah.
just the voice recorder of your iPhone, just voice
Yeah.
recording, it happens on device. And that file, which is an MP4 file, there's open source transcribers for free. OpenAI has one, for instance, called Whisper, that you can transcribe on your machine. So even if you're worried about, okay, this is a very confidential board meeting, I want to record it for transcribing purposes, but I don't want to send it to the
Yep.
cloud. You don't have
Yep.
to. And there's a lot of fancy tools out there in the App Store that does that for you, but then they send it to the cloud. If you're worried about that, just use old-fashioned voice recorder. Default app on the
Right.
iPhone works fine.
Actually, the name of the app, I just looked it up, is Voice Memos.
Voice memos. It is a voice recorder, but the name is voice memos. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they ever thought we would record 3-hour meetings with it, but
Yeah,
let's
we do.
go.
If you have a 3-hour meeting, like all of the stuff that was said in the beginning, you tend to forget at the end. And oh man, if you have to make notes and you know remember everything that was said is just so painful. But when you start recording these conversations and you transcribe them, you do that locally, like you said, which makes it a little bit more safe and more privacy aware. You can really speed up, and you don't have to be a fantastic prompter in order to do this. It's actually very simple. But And I think that by doing it this way, you really get the human element into the document, right? The what we are thinking and the nuances of our thoughts then get embedded in that document because the AI understands just so much more of what we're thinking. And because the opposite is that you try to write it down like in a document, and then you're always thinking about the writing process itself, which for me is such a hurdle,
It's
right?
really a distraction, absolutely. And about this writing process, I think one of the first documents we created after we sort of had an agreed form of the value prop was our brand voice. And our
Uh-huh.
brand voice is basically a document saying how do we want to communicate as a brand. Of course, the brand voice needed to understand at least what type of business we were. So we started with the value prop. The value prop is an internal document. So there we were less concerned about the brand voice. The brand voice for every other document is important to be able to produce the whatever we have said about our value prop, but to be able to produce externally facing content with it. And the funny thing is the brand voice document itself, you said something about we don't need consultants, but what I actually did for the first version before I present to you, and I think you did a lot of things with it and it became what we're using today. But the first version, I basically just gave the value prop to AI and I said, what are some questions you need to know to be able to understand our brand voice? And then it came like, do you want to be the person that's always the loudest in the room, or do you want to be the person that's maybe more nuanced? And 10 other questions. And by
Mhm.
basically giving a flavor of how I think I look at you, I look at myself, and it sort of models what the brand voice should be. And I think it's quite consistent because if you now see how we communicate, I think it's clear that there's some sort of brand voice attached to it.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
also hear that from other people. So I think it
There's
works really
yeah.
well. And we did it in the same iterative process, recording, talking, and ending up with these great documents, value prop, brand voice, and that's it.
And those are the core documents that we give to the AI every time we want to create a new piece of content or a page on the website or an email or a presentation like I did yesterday, whatever it is, right? And you always refer back to those documents. Yeah, that's great.
Absolutely.
So what is the takeaway that we want people to walk away with? What really works for us is that process of iterating, right? Instead of just dropping in a prompt into the AI and hoping it gives us the right answer straight away, we iterate on it and we have conversations about it, human conversations, right? And then
Yeah.
the AI listens in because we give it the transcript. And that just makes it such a better process, I would say. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah, fully. And the interesting thing is these models keep getting bigger and bigger, right? It's always like how many parameters are there? Are they? They're so big. They're so you have all this knowledge. All this knowledge is being trained in it. And we love that and we use that. But at the same time, we wanted to make it smaller. We wanted to understand the relatively small world of our business. We want to understand the relatively small way we decide to communicate. So what we're always doing, we're trying to get the best model
Yeah.
for the task at hand. If
Yeah.
I'm developing, it's maybe a different model than if I'm creating marketing content. So first is understanding which model, and those models are very capable. And then I'm going to limit it again by saying, this is our value prop, this is our brand voice. And with that limitation, there's this beautiful sentence, I cannot say it, it's in German, but something like the master comes from limitations or something. And
Okay. Yeah.
so you do that, you take a fantastic model, big,
Mhm.
powerful, you limit it with whatever you think is appropriate for you, and then something actually super useful comes out of it. Lately, I've been quite active on LinkedIn, and I try to do it quickly because you have to be relevant. So if something happens last night in, I don't know, somewhere
Yeah.
on the globe, I try to read it and immediately post something about it. I do that basically with these two files, the brand
Mhm.
voice and our value prop. I say like, I read this article, I think it's a cool article, create something for me, and it creates something. And to be honest, I don't even tweak anything I post on LinkedIn. And some of these posts do really well. And I don't know if people understand how quickly I'm able to do it. And that's
Mm.
quick because we have put in so much effort before.
Right.
So the whole
Right.
garbage in, garbage out
Right.
is true. We have spent weeks, to be honest,
Right.
not nonstop in iterations, to create these two essential documents, right? So that's also fair to say. So people maybe think, oh, you do it in 1 minute. Well, you do it in 1 minute if you
Yeah.
prepare it correctly, right? So
Yeah. And here's the other thing that surprises me every time is that because you mentioned these big models, and sometimes it may feel like you need to throw a lot of information at the AI to do a good job. But actually that's not always necessary. And if I look at the brand voice document and the value proposition document that we ended up with, they're actually very concise little documents. They're not 10, 20 pages. They're like 3 pages, maybe 2. And that's enough for the AI to understand what we want to say in the world, and using what kind of words. And the conciseness of the document makes the AI somehow also better at creating content. It's almost like the bigger the document you throw at it, the less quality content you're going to get out of it. But you have to put in the effort of iterating to get that first document right. Right? That's the process.
Yeah, that's the old writer's story of sorry, I didn't have a lot of time. That's why I wrote you such a long letter. And
Exactly.
if you take all the fluff out, the meaning stays the same. I think humans are not so good at it themselves, so they
Right.
tend to double up and 3 times the same argument. The AI doesn't need that. The AI will needs it very sort of sharp and solid. And that's why those documents you refer to are relatively compact, which is also good. Of course, it's maybe a more technical topic, but of course, you have the context window, you have tokens, you have token cost. You also don't want to send 100 pages of documents with every conversation you have. So I think it's very useful that they are short, and it's actually very doable because if you take all the fluff out, you go back to the essence.
There you go.
Yeah, so recently an anecdote of a person I work with outside of my sort of outside of our business, but he doesn't use AI a lot, but this is a very technical person, and he had to build something with AI. And I said, let's do it with this. Do it with AI. It helps you. And what he did is actually he created whatever report he had to create was created with AI, and then he took the Word document and started editing in the Word document, saying, "Yeah, this is what AI wrote, but I actually think it's a little bit like this." And that's how he wanted to hand it in. I said, "No, you
Mm.
actually that iterative process happens
Mm.
in the AI, not after the AI, and you want to present the document as if it's your document. Doesn't matter that it's created with AI, coming back to their point in the beginning, don't shy away from that, don't be afraid of that, but at least make sure that you control the inputs, that you can stand behind the output. And I think that's really an anecdotal thing, that people sort of still detach themselves from the AI as if
Mm.
somebody else did it, and they will just say what they think. No, AI has to become part of your workflow, and you have to own the fact that you're using it, but you also have to own the output. I think that's really important. The minute you start not owning the output, I think then don't use it, if you know what I mean. So I think that's something to reflect on, I think, for people that are sort of starting out with using AI in their sort of normal workflow.
Talking about using AI in your normal workflow, we're using AI in all of our normal workflows at Aimable. And we'll talk a lot more about that in upcoming conversations. But I think for now, this has been a fun conversation. So thank you, Ian.
Thank you. See you
All
next
right.
time then.
Cheers.